Suchir was one of the earliest members of OpenAI. He left the company after being concerned of a few things on how they used a lot of the copyrighted information. So he left the company and he became a whistleblower. And then not long, I think days after a New York Times interview, and I think weeks before he had to testify in court against OpenAI, he was found dead. And for some reason, no one in the media is covering the story.
November 18th, he's been named as a witness. November 22nd, he's gone. It's just very short period of time. This is not the first time a whistleblower is found dead. Where are we heading? Just because they've invested billions of dollars, we cannot take lives of people.
Purnima, Balaji, it's a pleasure to have you both on the show. This is the first show that me and Danish do together because of how important the story is, in my opinion, shocking. So what I will do is I will give a very quick overview of the story, and then Danish also has a quick intro before the interview, before we start asking you questions. But for anyone listening, Suchir was one of the earliest members of OpenAI. He worked closely with Sam Altman and the rest of the team to create the ChatGPT that we all use today. He left the company after being concerned, among many other people, of a few things on how they used a lot of the copyrighted information that they say is publicly available. Others dispute that. So he left the company and he became a whistleblower. And then as he became more vocal, not long, I think days after a New York Times interview, and I think weeks before he had to testify in court against OpenAI, he was found dead. And for some reason, no one in the media is covering the story. And we wanted to have you both on the show to ask the questions that no one's asking. Danish?
Before we begin today's interview, I want to let everyone listening know that the conversation ahead will deal with some topics related to suicide, suspected murder, and grief. These are sensitive subjects, and some viewers may find them distressing. If at any point you feel upset or triggered, please consider pausing and reaching out for support. In the United States, you can reach out to the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting 988. If you are outside the US, please look up the equivalent in your country.
So, Purnima, I want to start, and where me and Danish are going to really focus on at the beginning is who is Suchir and what role did he play at OpenAI? So I would love to give you the mic to explain to people listening on how did Suchir get into the space and how did he get involved with OpenAI? And at what early stage was he there?
Suchir Balaji was a national champion in computing Olympiad in 2016. When he was in high school, 2 years, every weekend, day and night, he was practicing algorithms. And he downloaded the data from many different universities related to machine learning. He had keen interest. Then he took a gap year, worked as a software engineer in Cora, right after his 12th, right after his high school. And then he joined UC Berkeley for his undergrad in BS Computer Science. Most challenging program, and he maintained 4.2 GPA throughout. And while he was at UC Berkeley, he attended ACM ICPC Inter College Programming Contest. He represented UC Berkeley for the world. He also won 100,000 awards in 2018 for TSA, Transport Security Alliance, for writing the passenger screening algorithm. This was way before anyone else knew about AI. He was already a champion in machine learning and algorithms. Every year in undergrad, he took internship in one AI company. First year, he did that OpenAI. Second year, he did that Scale. Third year, I forgot the name of the company. So he had this keen interest in AI space from the beginning. At the age of 11, he started programming. And within 6 months, he used to ask me questions that I could not answer on algorithms. So he was very advanced. And the reason he joined OpenAI was his belief that AI will help the humanity. And he was very impressed with OpenAI initially because they were non-profit. His concern started to become more and more wider, as we learn now that when they went public, that's when his concerns started to arise, and he started questioning himself, as he's mentioned in the interview.
So, at what stage did he get involved with OpenAI? How many employees were they in those days at the company? What did he tell you about those days?
He started working as a part-time employee in November 2020 while he was still studying. Then, as soon as he completed his graduation in 2021, he joined as a full time employee in June 2021. At that time, I think they were in a smaller building when he joined, that was very near to where his apartment is. After 2 years, they moved to a bigger building. And he's mentioned as the O1 core contributor to ChatGPT. Some of the tributes given by his former boss, George Kluman, says that he did something to fine-tune ChatGPT that made it more faster and efficient. But what bothered him was even his friends are mentioning there was no recognition for his work throughout until he passed away. They didn't recognize him. Even now, there's no news from OpenAI about his contribution or the significance with which he worked. That's very unfortunate.
Not only is it's even more concerning than that. I was looking at ChatGPT. I asked the question, "Who is Suchir Balaji, and did he work at OpenAI?" And the answer, I posted it earlier today, is that we don't have any record of Suchir Balaji working at OpenAI. That was ChatGPT's answer. But I asked that same question on Google's Gemini, and it answered correctly. I asked the same question on Anthropic's Claude, and it answered correctly. And I asked the same question to Elon's Grok, and it gave the most factual and detailed answer. Yeah, the company he helped build mentioned that it has no record of who Suchir Balaji was, and that put out more red flags earlier today. I'm sorry if you weren't aware of this. I'm sorry to mention this.
Now, we have been watching this and we have screenshots of several different answers ChatGPT is providing. That may be because of what it gathers around the web or something. And also, there's a encyclopedia page, Wikipedia page. In the Wikipedia page, they state certain things that could not be true. So we've been wondering where this data is being fed. And also, there's a friend of Suchir. He's been trying to tag Suchir and post his accomplishments on LinkedIn. Suspiciously, he's been blocked. 1 week before Suchir's death news, he was prevented from tagging Suchir in LinkedIn. So there are
And for
forces at work.
Danish, I want to correct. I've checked now. So now, because we posted about it earlier today, Danish, did Suchir Balaji work at OpenAI? I posted the screenshot, said they have no record. Now it has the information again. So I've checked it again now, 12, 10 hours later, and it has the information. So it's back on ChatGPT. Sorry, go ahead, Danish.
No, I was going to say, for just to give complete context, LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft, which has a direct relationship with OpenAI. So I wanted to say what Purnima is probably thinking, but just say it out loud. One question I had was around his role. What did he say to you about his role there?
He never spoke about work. We always spoke about general things. But when George Kluman shared, there's a very long tribute I can share with you. Balaji posted it on LinkedIn as well. That gave account of what all his contributions at OpenAI were.
I want to get closer to recent events, and I know it's going to be a difficult discussion, Purnima and Balaji. So what we know is that Balaji had concerns at OpenAI. Can you tell us more about those concerns, and when did you find out about them?
We came to know only after the New York Times interview. And the first question I asked, did they contact you or did you go? He said, no. I reached out to them because of the lawsuit against OpenAI. And then after that only we learned about it. The last day when he met us, we had a brief conversation and I did express my concerns as well, reading his article in Suchir.net publication. It's unethical, it's not fair, it's not right. So he had us.
And so that interview with New York Times, and I know, Danish, you've gone into it, you're deep in the AI space. Can you maybe explain to the audience a bit further on what that interview was about and expand maybe on Suchir's concerns?
Yeah, so the number one thing that is public from that article and other things that Suchir has written is that when he left the company in August of 2024, he became disillusioned with the business practices, which he publicly denounced, alleging that OpenAI violated US copyright law in order to develop ChatGPT. He also said that ChatGPT would render many people and many companies commercially unviable by utilizing their content to make improvements to OpenAI without giving them anything in return. And he expressed these concerns regarding OpenAI. He quoted, I'm going to use one of his quotes, "If you believe what I believe, you have to just leave the company." So it was an active decision because he felt that, as Elon has said and many leaders have said, OpenAI was using copyrighted information without the consent of the owner.
And then his concerns was OpenAI was doing more bad to the web than good. And he was looking at AI bringing more good to society rather than bad. That was his concern. Now, the timing of these events, because this is where it gets dark. What we know is that not long, and Purnima and Balaji, if you can help us with the dates, but not long after that interview with the New York Times, he was found dead. And you have not heard from him for 3 days. And you filed, I think you called the police, you informed them of that. Can you tell us more about that day, please?
That's true. Actually, Suchir was traveling with his friends to Catalina Islands and Los Angeles from November 16th to November 22nd. 21st was his 26th birthday. 9:45 a.m. he spoke to me in the morning. He said he was in LA that time and he's going to celebrate birthday with his friends. He cut the birthday cake on 21st November, had enjoyed a great deal with his friends. 11 a.m. he texted me that he's flying back to San Francisco and the weather was good. And then around 4:54 p.m. I texted him about the weather. He said yes, it's pouring in San Francisco. 7:15 he spoke to Balaji. And next morning, 12:15, we usually spoke every day on Saturday or Sunday around 11 to 12 before he heads out. 12:15 p.m. when I called him, his phone rang once and went to voicemail. So I believed he's busy. All of Sunday, I called him multiple times, texted multiple times, sent him an email, no response. So Monday, I went and knocked on his door in his apartment, requested the leasing office to give me the entrance. I got entry into the building, not his apartment, knocked on the door, rang the bell, waited for a long time, came back. When I was coming back, my thought was maybe he was at co-working space, so he's not home. But fear was very, very strong. I called the police, and police went there. The leasing office people and all mentioned that they saw fire truck and as well as the police. They could not enter the apartment until I was there. They shared this information with me at 5:30 and said they need the leasing office to be open. Next morning, 23rd, I went to where we live is Union City. I went into Union City police station, filed a missing person complaint, and then went straight to San Francisco to his apartment, called the police. Since I was there, they went inside the apartment. Within 15-20 minutes, they came back and they said, no, we were not allowed to enter the apartment. The security protocol, we were waiting for a few officers. Then two more officers came, they went inside, they came back. They didn't tell us anything. They said, we have security protocol, we cannot enter, we're waiting for two more officers. At 2 o'clock, they said, ma'am, you should go home. Balaji was sick that day, so he couldn't accompany me. Ma'am, you should go home. In 5-6 hours, we'll get back to you. I was reluctant. I sat there because I want to know. I want to know. And like they said, it'll take 2 hours for the officers to come. I was waiting. 3:20. It was the worst nightmare of my life. I saw a white van coming by. Even now, if I see a long van, it's very hard for me. White van, and there were two lights on it, like a police van light. I was very worried why I didn't see the ambulance. And then a stretcher came out of it. It didn't look like the first aid stretcher or something. It didn't look like the ambulance. It didn't look like the paramedics. I ran to them and what is this stretcher for? My heart broke. He said, we have a dead person in the apartment. I still didn't want to believe. Is it 409? They didn't have the apartment number. At that point of time, my heart sank and I knew something very bad had happened to our son. But by 4 o'clock, they made a decision about the cause of death, just 40 minutes. And They said, wait in the leasing office, we'll come and tell you. They just came and gave the news. They handed over the keys. They only took very little information to make the determination of death. It's very, very tragic. At that moment, I told the medical examiner about the Whistleblower Act, and I told him he was a witness. He went to New York Times. They didn't even want to listen. And like we were shattered. Like we were completely shattered. We didn't know what to do. Next day, I called up police. I called up medical examiner's office. I called up homicide unit. Police said medical examiner is investigating. Medical examiner said police will investigate. Then I called a homicide department. They said, until medical examiner says this is a foul play, we will not get involved. But one good piece of information from the homicide unit is they said, ma'am, if you suspect something wrong, please go and get his valuables. By then, leasing office had already planned to clean the apartment. I called them. I said, you're not going to clean the apartment. You're going to maintain it as it is. And we don't want anyone to enter the unit. We went and brought his valuables and we saw what happened there. But at that time, we could not analyze. We could not think through what happened. We didn't want to be there in that place for more than few minutes. We just picked the unit, ran back.
Question actually for you. Was there a suicide note?
No.
Had he expressed any changes, in your opinion, the weeks or months prior around losing interest in things that he used to enjoy, withdrawing from friends, anything like that?
Nothing. As I just mentioned, November 16th to 22nd, he was on a trip. We went on a hike on November 7th. We went to Coyote Creek twice, once on October 30th, once on November 7th. And he had concrete plans of his career. I was checking with him as a mother. It's my responsibility how he spends his time, what are his hobbies. And when people came for his memorial service, everyone gave account of when they met him. They have been constantly in touch throughout. We have the
And
chat messages and the record that we can share with the authorities as needed. He had concrete career plans about his future. Even for finances, he said, Mom, if I want, I can retire now. I'm getting enough. He had some resources, very strong resources. If I want, I can buy a house, he assured me. And he wanted to start a non-profit in the medical field, help humanity. That was his plan. So where is the concern? I don't know.
was there any major other events in his life, like a breakup, any other issues that could have affected him dramatically in any way?
He was not in any relationship. He wasn't dating anyone.
So this was not unexpected, sort of, he's been getting worse and worse, having depressive issues, no history of depression, no history of these other issues.
Nothing.
Yeah, I was the last person to talk to him, unfortunately or fortunately, but he had a good mood. I don't see any depression in his voice. And also, I was asking how was his trip, and he said it was good. After that, he said he's going for dinner, and that was the last words.
And importantly, and this is a very important question, did he ever say that he was worried about his life or
No.
about anybody coming after him or
No.
any concerns around safety in his neighborhood?
No. In fact, he was very proud of his actions. He thought he became a hero. He started a movement. He was not at all afraid. He was very confident, very happy. He had strong future plans. There was no sign of any disturbance or anything. We know Suchir since he was born. He was very, very different. He was very brave, very courageous. He knew his decisions. He made his choices at the age of 4. So there was no question of him looking back. He's never complained about anyone, any problem. He never brought any problem to us. He always solved his problems. Though we were concerned about his New York Times thing, since we were overconfident, very confident about him that he will solve his problems, we didn't push him too hard. But one thing I really wanted to know was what's going on in his life, what are his plans. So I can answer everyone today. I pushed him for answers. I knew he had 5 people in his team. And I also knew he was going to look for seed funding. And he mentioned that he was not planning to take his salary also. I have enough resources. I don't want salary. Are you going to pay your colleagues? He said yes.
He had plans.
Have you spoken to any of his friends or seen any of the chats he's had with his friends as well?
Yeah, we spoke to all of them. In fact, like we have the video clippings of what they shared in the memorial service. Prior to this as well, one of my friend's daughter went to same school as him in Monte Vista. Through her, we got hold of all his friends, specifically the four that accompanied him to LA trip. And we found out that he was upbeat, he was happy, they went on a hike and they had great time. We have the pictures we can share with you.
I will start asking questions that are more graphic, but I think pretty important to explore what happened to Suchir. So I want to ask you, Purnima and Balaji, when you went to the apartment, what did you see?
It was very concerning. His apartment was very ransacked, and as I mentioned, first few times we didn't dare to go inside. We were very upset. But later when we went, we saw that there were blood spots in the bathroom near the sink, and on the top of the sink also there were spots of blood, and it seemed that he was brushing his teeth. His toothpick had fallen down, dustbin was displaced and it had fallen down. It appears that when he was brushing his teeth, someone attacked him from the back. That the blood spots indicate maybe he was hit on head, and then they have actually made him sit down and shoot based on the facts that the doctor gave. So we believe it's a professional job. Someone has been hired to kill him.
I'll explain the video. I saw the video that George Webb, who's an investigative journalist that's very invested in covering this as well. So hats off to him. It was a pretty difficult video for me to watch, and I was a bit hesitant to bring it up, but I think it is important. So, as everyone probably knows, the death is being ruled a suicide. But there's just so many red flags that we're going to go through. So many. I've got 4 pages worth of red flags. So the first one is looking at the scene of where Suchir was found. And essentially what you have, just kind of describe it for the audience, and we'll put the video probably on top of this, is you have blood spots on the sink, like a squirt of blood. And what it looks like is that his head was grabbed from the back and slammed onto the sink because he's got blood spots there. And it's a bit of a spray of blood. And then what you have, and where you say he sits down, is that there's a big puddle of blood right next to it on the floor, which is the bin has been tipped over, which it seems he was grabbed and thrown there. Now, what then looks like is, and this is all, I don't understand how that's ruled as a suicide. I don't know how it adds up. So I'd love to try to understand. Maybe there's another explanation to it that I cannot see and that Danish cannot see. But then what we see is that, and what was been described is that then as he was sitting on the ground, he was shot in the head, and then he was crawling out. Sorry for bringing this up. I know you've seen the video. He was crawling out, and then there's more blood as you get closer to the door. And the indicator, one of many indicators of why it does not look like a suicide, is that at the edge of the door, there's a clunk of hair. So it looks like the person that grabbed his hair grabbed it so strong, he pulled hair off Suchir's head, which was left on the ground along with the plastic bag. I want to ask you, Purnima and Balaji, from what you've seen there, is there anything that I've missed? And then I want you to explain to me how this is being ruled a suicide. What explanation is being given that this was a suicide?
We were given only two facts. First fact is there was no CCTV footage of anyone coming and leaving his apartment. They ignored the fact that there are two more entries to the building that doesn't have CCTV. So the only fact that even finally when we made an appeal to the chief of police medical examiner, they only gave one reason. We saw in CCTV footage, no one came in, no one went out, and he owned a gun. But when we asked them where was the gun, it was near his body. Was there gunpowder residue in his hand? No. This has been ruled as a suicide without taking into account many factors. And the most important is on November 18th, Suchir was named as a witness for New York Times, and he claimed to have evidence. He had the data to prove the copyright violation. Within a week, he was found dead. It's also worth noting that on November 21st, New York Times announced that OpenAI deleted the copyright data that was given for discovery to the justice system. They even deleted the evidence that was hosted and they said it was accidental. But let me ask you something. I'm an Azure engineer as well, I'm an architect. Anything on the virtual machine, just by changing the configuration, they cannot delete the data. I can say as a technical person, they claim that they were making configuration changes, accidentally they deleted the data. This news came on 21st. After his death was discovered, a friend forwarded that to me. Then immediately it struck to me that, okay, they have eliminated him.
So, just to make sure that everyone that's listening is aware, the police have said, and I will use their exact words because it's important, officers and medics arrived on scene and located a deceased adult male from what appeared to be a suicide. No evidence of foul play was found during the initial investigation. I know that, Purnima, you said that there was a gun near him, but no gunpowder residue.
Yes.
Did you share this concern with the authorities, and what have they said to you?
I have sent an email, no response. Tuesday of this week, I had a conversation with David Sewell, Executive Director at Chief Medical Examiner's Office. He was reluctant, and it appeared that it was a strong power behind him, the confidence and the arrogance with which he was speaking. And he said, we'll release the reports to you. At that point of time, I was very upset and I said, look, we don't want you to modify the data. We don't want you to change the evidence. He didn't even bother to answer. Anything I said, there was a head injury. In fact, there's a leaked report that George Webb has shared. There was a head injury. In fact, in the second autopsy, there's an indication of injury. There was a wound on his head that's indicated in the autopsy. When I mentioned that to David Sewell, he didn't even bother about it.
So just on that point, there's a wound on the, so other than the gunshot wound, there's another wound to the head.
Yes, and it's worth noting, it's very, very worth noting that in the news release, police have not disclosed the cause of death. You know why? They know something else has happened, and the bullet where it hit, it cannot kill him instantaneously. They have probably tortured him more than this. That's why they're not releasing the death. We need the toxicology report to get more information.
Have you received any reports whatsoever?
They've not released any report. You know what? From 1 month, each time we ask for a report, they say investigation is open. We check for the investigation status, they say closed. This pattern repeated. On Sunday, our attorney Phil Kenny said investigation is closed, it's ruled as suicide. Monday, we asked him for the report, they said, and when the case is open, we cannot give the investigation reports. We cannot give any reports. So this game is being played on us constantly by authorities. And on Tuesday, David Sewell said, we will release when it's ready. You know what? One more thing. Last week, I called a medical examiner's office. Unfortunately, I don't remember who took the phone. She said, even toxicology report is ready. Ma'am, you send an email to OCME, we'll send it to you. I have the email with me. I immediately sent to them. Next day, I got a response stating that the reports are not ready. So we know the reports are ready. They're hiding from us. It's
Yeah,
a big
in
fault.
general, toxicology reports should not take that long. It's been
It's
since
also
October
ready.
24th.
We were told by someone it's ready, but they're refusing that it's ready because they want to manipulate the report.
Have you received the autopsy report?
No, we made a request a month ago.
You did make a request.
I gave them a notice of spoliation, asking them to preserve his toxicology specimens, body part specimen, not to mess with it, to preserve the evidence, to preserve the specimen. And we are going to do DNA test against what specimen they give us because we don't trust the authorities. They've been playing. Some powerful forces in play. We don't know who they are at the moment.
Yeah, I feel he was in a protective mode, like, he bought the gun in January, a year ago almost. So he was in a if he want to protect him from some force, I don't know, that I feel that way. And he has went
Did he
to
ever
all
say anything to that effect to you? That he wanted to protect himself?
That's what we feel now because you know what?
He's,
If we look back at the events, November 21st, Sam Altman was replaced. He was fired and he was reinstated. And what we have been observing is lot of things started going in a different direction in OpenAI. John Schluman also mentioned something significant in January that Suchir shared with him that he's not happy. So that is when actually he knew something, and he knew something was dangerous. That's what we think. But again, we don't have facts to
Yeah,
cover
he
it.
has a very important information which he's carrying with him, and he want to make sure he is protected. That's why he went to the public press to get
Protection.
protection from the public, and he was trying all the ways to get that type of protection. He's a brave guy, but at the same time, he want to make sure everything is preserved and he can tell the truth.
He bought his. Did you say he bought his first? The first time he ever buys a gun was in January.
Yes.
Yes, 1 year ago.
Okay, I want to go back to a point you made earlier that the apartment was ransacked. Can you tell me more what you saw in the apartment? Because it seems like from the videos that I've seen, someone was searching for something and they knew where to look. Can you elaborate a bit more on what indicates that?
I think you know what, first they have actually killed him, because if he were aware, like, if the apartment was, there's a theory here, 7:15 p.m. he went out and came back. If there was something alarming him when he came in, he would have been already alert. He's a very smart guy. So they attacked him in the bathroom. Now, he had not seen anything unusual. They attacked him in the bathroom. They killed him and then looked for his gun and put that in the box on the table. Next to that gun was Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu scripture that he was reading. It's like Bible for us. That book was right next to it. That's what Suchir was doing. And they put the gun next to it. They made it look like a suicide. It's a cover up, planned cover up.
Yeah, they watched him for a long time, I think, because he went for a holiday. They know he went for the holidays, and also they planned in the weekend so people won't find him 3 days, so the evidence can be destroyed. So they have planned in a way, in such a period, to make it as a suicide. So it's like a planned one. All the
There,
pattern resembles that.
there's also more information about things missing from the apartment. So, can you tell me more about what you saw in the apartment? Were people looking for something? Was there a pen drive that was missing, for example?
That's what I believe, because I remember I needed a pen drive or something. A year ago, I asked Suchi, "Can I have your pen drive?" He said, "No, I only have one. I want it." So I know he had a pen drive. We couldn't find it in the apartment. Since he claimed that he had the evidence, we know he's preserved it somewhere, but we don't know. It could be the pen drive that was stolen.
That's the evidence against OpenAI.
Yes.
We're trying to figure out where he has it stored, and you think he has it stored in a pen drive that you know he has, but that you couldn't find in the apartment.
Yes, yes. And also his computer was left open. That is something, and we could access it without password. Police could access it without password. That's another thing that makes me wonder. He's a very secretive, private guy. All is like, if we log into his desktop, we can't log into his Gmail because he's never saved his passwords in the browser. None of his, like, I have a password manager. Anyone who can get access to my laptop can get all my emails. He was not like that. And he's used different passwords for different accounts. If he's so secretive, why his desktop was left open for 3 days when the police arrived? I don't know. I don't have answer to that question.
And did not have a so the laptop was not password protected.
It was password protected. When we brought it home and we wanted to connect, we couldn't. But in the apartment, it was left open. How? We don't have any idea.
Left
But
unlocked
left unlocked. And you know, if
for
we can
three
take
days.
3 days, it didn't go to sleep.
And you also said that the Google Drive or the cookies, the cookie cache of Google Chrome was cleared. Can you elaborate on that point?
Oh, that one actually, a friend of his, clarified to us that when you restart the computer, that will be deleted, he said. But what we are surprised is, in his journal, anything important has been deleted.
Tell us more
We
about
don't
his journal.
see any mention of anything. We just see few documents regarding copyright law, but nothing else is left intact.
Tell us about his journal.
Yeah, we still need to get access to it. The reason being, like, we can't connect to Google Mail, we can't read the Google Drive yet. But we looked at the date in the cache at the local store, and we know that it was until 11:15. the day before he went to his vacation. And he just got back on 11/22. Within few hours of his return, he's been killed. Just few hours. And if you notice the time span, November 18th, he's been named as a witness. November 22nd, he's gone. It's just very short period of time. OpenAI deleted the staging data. My son has been found dead, I can say.
And also, Purnima called the police department. There is a foul play, we suspect. What one of the good cop told, go and
I mentioned
grab
already. I mentioned
the
already.
laptop too.
On November 27th, we were in shock, we were shattered, but I still called the police. They said medical examiner is doing investigation. Medical examiner said police is doing investigation. Both are not answering. I called a homicide unit. I left voicemail to 2 to 3 officers. One of the lady officers called me back and he said, ma'am, unless medical examiner says there's a foul play, we won't start the homicide. But if you suspect, please go and grab his digital devices and make sure the apartment is intact. That actually gave us a momentum. And immediately 28th, we went and gathered his phone, desktop and laptop.
And I want to ask another question about the. You keep talking about the police department and the medical examiner. Can you explain those two entities and how they work, how they operate? Who's running the investigations? Who's deciding whether it's suicide or foul play? That's the first question that I have. Is it the medical examiner? Is it the police force? Okay, it's the medical examiner.
They are the
And
state
that's a
authority.
state authority. So the medical examiner makes a decision on whether there's foul play, and then the police act on that decision. If
Yes.
the medical examiner says there's foul play, then the police launch an
Yes.
investigation, correct?
Yes.
So the police is not launching an investigation because the medical examiner is saying it's suicide. But I do remember one thing you said previously is that the medical examiner also flip-flopped a bit. Initially said it was murder, then he said it was suicide. He kind of changed his decision a couple of times, correct?
Oh, that was our attorney. Our attorney said on Saturday, Phil Kearney said it's a homicide. And then on Sunday, he said it's a suicide. So that's where actually he's been in touch with medical examiner and all. So medical examiner indirectly concluded a homicide. But again on Sunday, they got some pressure and they changed it to suicide. That's exactly what's under the cover.
So initially it was mentioned it was a homicide. It was murder. And that's what they told your attorney. And then they changed it to suicide?
First day when they came, they found a body. That time, police just found a body. They didn't make the cause of death determination. That determination is done by medical examiner. Medical examiner ruled suicide. So the rule is if the medical examiner rules suicide, there won't be any investigation. What we
Okay.
did in 1 month is we did the second autopsy, we gave some facts, and the fact that he was involved in a federal lawsuit, they were supposed to do the investigation. Police agreed to do the investigation. On Saturday, Phil Kearney told us it's a homicide. On Sunday, he called and said it's a suicide. And you know what he said? Medical examiner said, yes, the angle of bullet is trajectory is very weird, but it's a suicide.
Got it. So
It's
while
fault.
they may have potentially changed their opinion, they very quickly reversed it back to being a suicide because the medical examiner continues to assert that despite some of the evidence, they are very confident that this is a suicide. That is their assertion, correct?
They don't have evidence. They don't have any evidence. They don't have complete set of evidence to call it suicide. Gunpowder residue is missing. Death note is missing. Mental state is strong. They don't have enough evidence. I did.
Blood pattern does not add up for a suicide the way they've described it. The hair on the corner of the door as well is unanswered. So there's a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah, there
Yes.
is a struggle. There was a
We see a
struggle there
struggle
where
sign.
he tried to
Save
save his
himself.
life, and some theory. I mean, one of the theories he was electrocuted, like with a stun
Sten gun or
initially.
something.
Then they did that. So that is another attorney he
Our
absorbed.
investigator, private investigator, we hired him and he went on Saturday and he said he might have been electrified and we don't know. We're waiting for
Because
his
the
report.
things are scattered. That's why the reason is it is electrocuted. Yeah.
Have you heard from OpenAI at all?
No, You know what? He's in his emergency contact. We were there, right? Without emergency contact, they won't hire him. They never contacted us. When we applied for probate so that we could get his access to his devices through Apple, right? Apple wants us to get a court order. We had to apply for probate. That time, our probate attorney wanted to contact his employer to know about his 401k plan. That's when they came forward. At that point of time, OpenAI first said Sam Altman wanted to talk to us. We didn't talk. Then they said we'll extend the employee assistance program for an employee who has quit the company. And we said, just for counseling, I have my medical insurance, I don't need it. Then the third email came from HR saying that we want to get you on a Zoom call. We want to talk to you. We didn't trust them and we said we are grieving at this moment. We have a probate attorney. We had our probate attorney call and talk to them. Third time pushing us to come to a Zoom call to talk to them was suspicious for us.
What was the reasoning that OpenAI gave for the Zoom call?
We want to talk about his stock option, they said. And my response to that is money is not important to us. We are not eager to know about it. We are grieving at this moment. We are not in a state to answer any of those questions.
Did they mention anything around NDAs or anything of that sort?
Nothing.
Given the situation are you surprised by the fact that news media is not talking about this?
Yes, we're surprised.
And why do you think that is?
I think there is power play here. Either, we don't know. One of the things could be racism, one of the things could be, but more than likely it's the forces at play. In fact, when the Mercury News reporter came home, I mentioned the name OpenAI, he was scared. It's like he was very scared. And if you notice, December 15th, Ilyas Suchir, who was a formal OpenAI board of directors, he came on December 15th to talk about AI. He had armed men with him. So this AI industry is becoming a mafia now. He was scared of his life. He brought armed security guards around him. This is where we are taking the society to. And people who are watching this show, please tell me, where are we heading? It's not about the death of one innocent life, like the whole industry itself. Just because they've invested billions of dollars, we cannot take lives of people.
I've interviewed world leaders, I've interviewed criminals, I've traveled around the world. There's countries I don't even go to because of the people I've interviewed there. And this is the first time someone close to me, very close to me, is not in politics. I told her the story. And for the first time ever, she's like, Mario, are you sure you want to do this one? For me, the story sounds so bizarre, but so concerning for a country like the United States. To see a case like this ruled as a suicide, for me, is the first massive question mark that I have. Well, let's call it a red flag. The second thing is to see such a story not be covered by the media. In my mind, I'm like, how much pressure would there be, or ignorance? It's one of the two, my guess is. It's ignorance of how significant this is, which is something easy to overcome because once there's awareness, ignorance is no longer an issue. Or pressure from a company like ChatGPT, which I've got open here on my iPad. Every time I do an interview, I use ChatGPT, the company that your son helped build. To give you an idea of how impactful it is and how integrated it is in our lives. And me and Danish spoke before this. We had a private discussion, but we literally had a call and said, we kind of discuss the repercussions, the potential repercussions of doing an interview like this. So for me, this is a story that only brave media outlets will cover, only brave figures will talk about. And I just think that if stories like this are buried, we're heading down a very, very scary path. Danish, what are your thoughts on what we're seeing in this? And you're just on a full context as well. Danish, who I've worked with for a while, he hosts a lot of our shows, and he's an extremely he's a doctor, knows a lot, but is also extremely objective and balanced. That's from the first day I've had him on my stage to obviously now running his own shows. So Danish, looking at this as objectively as possible, what do you make of this?
Well, Purnima kind of talked about it a little bit. I mean, we have seen the topic of Indian Americans, and Suchir was an American citizen.
Yes. I'm an American citizen as well.
Purnima is an American citizen. And
Suchir was born in America.
He was born here. He grew up here. He was amongst our best. He represented the United States internationally in competitions.
Yes.
He worked at the company that all of us use every day He was concerned about something that affects people. He worked incredibly hard, built a life, had friends, and it's surprising to me that no one is talking about this, that no one is taking the time to say, hey, maybe we should look into this a little bit more. Maybe his parents know what his mental state was. He had never been admitted to a hospital
No.
for mental health issues. He had never been diagnosed, at least from what we've heard, for mental health issues. He had not shown any signs of depression from what we asked, a very basic set of questions. Yes, he owned a gun, but he had never shown any signs of being, irresponsible with that gun. I think there are all of these very clear things where you have to ask yourself, hey, why, by the way, in a city like San Francisco, right, where this would be of really big news, is no one talking about it? Why are local and state government not making a large investigation out of it? And we have to ask ourselves, is it because of who he was? Is it because of where he worked? Is it because of what he had? What is the reason why no one is talking about this? I am in shock that we see stories that are much smaller than this get so much more press. And it's
And
probably because of what you and I were talking about before, which is even us, we were worried. We were like, should we cover this? What does this mean? Because this is a big story and it is talking about some very important companies at a time when they are incredibly powerful.
True. True. They have
um,
Microsoft behind them.
Purina, did Suchir ever say that he wanted to bankrupt OpenAI at any time?
No, no. He just
Did
said
he
he
say?
didn't believe in their business model.
I remember seeing somewhere he said the words that I can, but I want to bankrupt AI. He was very angry at what they were doing. Can you tell me more about his? He was very driven. That was became an objective of his. Can you tell me more about his feelings towards OpenAI?
He never spoke, but as a mother, I know his inside out, right? So whenever I raise OpenAI's name, there was anger in me. And what he said was, I think one of the forgot the name of the models. He didn't believe in their business plan. And like everybody, even in his chat messages, what we have seen is everybody believed in it, but Suchir had a different point of view. He didn't believe in their business model. That might actually, and also he expressed his concern to his friends that they're running out of the way they're burning the money. They might run out of resources. That's what he felt. It's a very
Oh, okay,
practical.
so I misunderstood. Yeah, I misunderstood that comment. So when he made that comment to you, what I understood is that he has so much evidence against them, because maybe that could be something to look into. He had so much evidence against him because he was about, just to remind the audience, he was about to testify. Was it weeks after his death? He
Yeah,
was meant to be testifying,
in the New York.
and yeah, so and what I assumed was he had enough evidence against OpenAI that when he
Yes, yes.
testified in court, he could bankrupt them. That was my assumption.
Yeah, they would have been actually proved guilty. So he stated, you know what? New York Times stated Suchir had the evidence. It was with him. We don't know at the moment if he's already given that to New York Times or not given that to New York Times. His testimony would have turned the outcome of the case. It had a big impact. I would not want to come to conclusion bankrupt or non-bankrupt. That's beyond my ability to infer. I would say that he didn't believe in their business model, and he also knew he had data.
And to kind of finalize this for the audience, essentially what his testimony included is evidence that OpenAI allegedly wiped off, of how they used copyright information to build the foundational learning block of the LLM we use today to create the chat GPT that we all have access to, which is the core of a case of a pretty large case against OpenAI, which New York Times is part of the company suing OpenAI, among many other creators, claiming that OpenAI used their data without their consent. So essentially illegally used their data. And that was what Suchir was going to be testifying in. That was the case that he was going to testify in. Not long beforehand, he was found dead. My last question to you, Purnima and Balaji, is And I know that Danish has a pretty emotional final question as well. But my question is, what would you like the world to know about this? What would you like everyone listening to this? What would be a
We want
message to
the
them?
FBI to investigate. We want the truth to be out. We want the wrongdoers to be punished. We want justice for Suchir, an innocent life, a precious life which could have added a lot of value to humanity is lost. This is the fight for justice, fight for humanity, fight for wrongdoing. I want FBI to investigate because I'm not seeing any value in the state. The power is being misused here. With thorough federal investigation, we may be able to bring justice. Please help us raise this to FBI. Please start the investigation. Please bring the truth out.
Yeah, we are looking for resources like professional help, attorneys who are expert in this field, and
Yes.
also give us a mass
Elon Musk.
awareness so that way it reaches more people to help us. There are people who know some truth behind it. We want to connect with them and get the full picture.
We have GoFundMe as well as a Solana wallet, and we're raising funds as well because the legal expenses would be. We already have $100,000 retainer. And more than anything, we want people to come forward. And if someone knows something, we want them to be protected so they could feel secured and share the information. You know what I mean? If reporters are scared to mention, we want the federal government to provide protection to people who knows, make an announcement that they will save their lives so people can come and share the truth about this shady industry.
Yeah, whistleblowers has to be protected, so they have to given some kind of insurance
Security.
security that they can people can come forward to talk the truth.
Tell the truth.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are other people who knows what went wrong with Suchir, why he was killed, but they're scared of their own lives to come forward and speak. If the federal government intervenes and gives them the protection, we may have some people to come and tell the truth to at least our attorney, to our investigator, or to the authorities to bring light. Right now, it's been under the carpet, pushed under the carpet very badly. I also want to remind the viewers this is not the first time a whistleblower is found dead. I just recall that in March of this year, Boeing whistleblower was founded exactly same way. Why? In the past, we knew that whistleblowers would not make a living, they were fired, they could not be hired, but now the humanity is moving in such a cruel direction that we take their lives. If this is the case, our future generations, children that are coming up, do we want to teach them to lie? Do we want to teach them to be scared of their lives and don't tell the truth? Where are we heading?
Purnima, last question. Our goal was to have people understand who Suchir was. I think a lot of people have talked about the instances and the information and the evidence around his passing. Not enough. Hopefully, more people can. But two questions to end. One, what do you think you want people to know about Suchir? And two, what would you say to him today?
Suchir was a prodigy. He was a great humanitarian. He stood for a cause and he sacrificed his life to bring the ethics, to bring justice to humanity. He's a martyr. We honor him, we respect him.
Yeah, he is a hero, a fighter. He won't give up easily. So we have to continue his mission to fight for his justice.
Once we find the justice, we want to continue to strive for ethics in AI. We want to strive for regulations. We want to start some projects that will fulfill his dream while he's not here. We want to take his legacy forward. But first thing first, we can't be at peace until we get justice for him.
Yeah, we started Suchir AI, one startup which trying to help in ethical way of responsible AI and doing project planning to do some projects on that, and also finding truth for. I mean, the police is not able to discover truth. AI can find it. So that type of truth finding projects we want to start.
Balaji and Purnima, I know it's been a very, very difficult conversation for the both of you. I admire your courage. As we speak about this, a lot of times I'm just thinking, what would my mom do if she was in a similar position? And my answer is she'll be fighting just like you both are. So thank you for doing this. I know how difficult it must be. Anything I could do to help beyond this interview, I've already extended my arm and I want to extend it again here. And for anyone that wants to help, we'll put your contact details in the description of the video so they can reach out to you and support. And for anyone that wants to speak out on this, if anyone has any information, you could obviously reach out to us. If you could reach out to Balaji and Purnima as well, directly if you prefer, whoever you feel more comfortable reaching out to. We've got processes in place for anyone else to have their identity protected. Again, really appreciate you both joining, and Danish, thank you for doing this difficult interview, man.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Danish.
Mario.
Thank you,
Danish.
Mario, for speaking up the truth. There are few people who are like Suchir, and thank you.